Welcome to another episode of Adventures in Movies looks at ... My name is Nathaniel Muir, and I'm the movie editor at AIPT. Joining me are the hosts of Adventures in Movies.
Oh, hi, I'm Danny.
And I'm Blake.
And this week we will be looking at 4 games in fall. This is the first time we've actually covered a sports documentary, and it's about the Deflategate game back in January of 2015 between the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts. The Patriots routed the Colts, leading to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots being called cheaters yet again, but on a national scale. So before we get into the actual movie, you guys remember Deflategate and all that craziness?
Yeah,
Yes.
that shit was fun.
Sure do.
I kind of feel like I saw Blake kind of roll his eyes. At first I was like, that's interesting. I don't understand it. I've never heard of anything like this before, but it very quickly became super boring. It was everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, it took over everything. It was so annoying.
It says something about the news cycle back in 2015.
Truly made me go like, boy, I sure missed the days of giving a shit about fucking football and like being the most important thing in the world.
It's crazy, and in the documentary they talk about how it took over like national news, like whether Tom Brady. It's about the Patriots too, but really it's about Tom Brady.
Yeah.
It's about whether Tom Brady cheated in this football game, which is crazy. What were your guys? Did you guys have opinions on it? Like I thought, honestly, I was like, I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I thought this was the silliest thing ever that had to just come out. I feel like we couldn't, as a nation, we couldn't be more glued to our TV to something more stupid. And it shows. And
none of us are Patriots fans. Like Danny are a Jaguars fan, Blake's a Cowboys fan, I'm an Eagles fan. So I mean, we're not defending Tom Brady at all.
No.
So, but back then, when I remember seeing that, I was just like, okay, this is just people just wanting to hate on the stupidest thing about Tom Brady. So let's get into the documentary. So this documentary, it's very one-sided, very much.
Yes, one way to put
it. That is the point of it. But how did you guys? Well, first, I guess the real first question is, were you guys surprised about what the documentary was about?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So. Okay, so you said this is we switched out the movie that we're gonna watch for this, and I was like, oh, cool, fuck yeah. But like when you said it's about Deflategate, I laughed, and I was like, yeah, I'm fucking in for sure. And then it just becomes like JFK in a way, where they're just so you could see where the bullet comes in
back to the left,
back to the, and it just becomes this comedic thing almost. So
yeah,
I don't know.
We'll get into that in the final thoughts.
Yeah.
So were you surprised, Blake, that it got so heavy into the science of it, or did you think it was just straight up going to be about Deflategate?
No, I mean, I when we got the news, I literally thought to myself, what the fuck could you make a documentary about that for? Like, why, how and why would you want to? What's the purpose? What kind of information you gonna give? I did think they went out of their way at first to make it seem like a scientific endeavor was transpiring here. But air pressure and cold air, they kind of go down together. If anybody who's had to fucking air up their tires after a cold night knows that. So, I mean, okay, that's how it starts.
What did you guys think? So when there's a scene near the beginning where the scientists from MIT of all places, so these are not random people. Yeah, they probably paid good money too. He's going into the air pressure and the formulas, and they're playing this really wacky circus music over it. Like, I thought that was hilarious. It was like something. I think it was intentionally hilarious. It felt like something out of The Simpsons to me.
Yeah.
The music was pretty funny. Yeah.
What did you guys think of the opening?
The cold opening was.
I like the opening, actually.
It was really, really good. It almost had that 30 for 30 flair.
I liked it. I thought it set up to be a really. I mean, I was engaged. It was engaging. The very first part of it engaged me.
It very much puts you in 2015. I mean, that's only 5 years ago, so it's not super difficult. But considering what's going on and what's been in the news all this year, it's either been a pandemic or it's been election, and that's all that we've talked about for 12 months now.
Yeah.
Seeing the country just enamored by this sports story was pretty cool. It was kind of different to see. There's lots of interviews in this thing, lots and lots of interviews. Like, what did you guys think of the interviews?
So my thoughts about this, like the whole interviews, I felt it was kind of like a true crime documentary. They had a lot of like talking heads with us. Like everybody had their opinion or fact or their the assumptions of what could have happened or what happened. And I feel like Tom Brady was murdered in all of this. Like in 2015 he got murdered, and they're trying to figure out how it happened with science.
OJ.
Yeah. And OJ just comes up with a glove and he's like, it's that all along.
Yeah. So there was a lot of interesting interviews. But it's all very one-sided. And so it all points at a very particular direction.
Mm-hmm.
And at by the end of it, I was almost not paying attention to what anybody had to say anymore, because they were all just regurgitating the same information differently, or and they'd seem like smart folks who spent a lot of time thinking about this, but I
agree with you. Like, repetitive is what I thought.
Very repetitive.
Now, it does stay interesting because even though the scientists and the attorneys are saying the same thing, they do get to that end point in different ways. So it's kind of interesting. But you're right. Towards the end, there is a lot of it's diminishing returns is what you're getting, basically, because it's a lot of the same thing.
Yeah.
And to Danny's point, it is kind of a true crime conspiracy theory almost. That doesn't make it any less interesting, depending on what side of the coin you're on. But it is, one-sided, intentionally so, and it can get pretty boring pretty quickly unless you're really, really into it. Did it surprise you how deep Deflategate went? I mean, we're talking and I'm talking about the people who are interviewed. Like, I mean, there's scientists and attorneys and a dude in a bomber jacket. I mean,
yeah.
As I mentioned, I guess because it does go that route of a true crime conspiracy type of thing. Like, it goes down every, I guess what is it, archetype that you would get in a true crime like murder thing. It was surprising. Like, it wasn't that surprising, I guess. It was just there.
The thing that surprised me the most was the amount of fucking money spent on lawyers and investigations, and how much fucking time and effort the NFL spent to, it's the NFL, an evil corporation that lies and makes up shit. Yes. Are the fucking Patriots a bunch of cheating assholes? Yes. So it's like, who gives a shit? Like, you guys are just you're chasing each other's tails. And it was just a tremendous amount of money and time. And it captivated us. And like, ultimately, I think they realized, like, there's no such thing as bad press. Like, that's all this was for the Patriots, for Tom Brady, for the NFL. That's what I found surprising, is like, I'm seeing it for what it is, which is like a fucking marketing ploy. Yeah.
Which goes to my next question. Like, one of the things that the documentary brings up is marketing. It's all a PR move. It's all about manipulation. I was going to ask, did you see that? Did you feel that after watching? Because after watching it, like the first time I watched it, I was kind of amazed. Not so much by the Deflategate part of it, but about the PR stuff, the media manipulation, the way they worded things. And I was like, wow, that is how it happened. And some of those things really did work on me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like a good portion of the movie is on the marketing ploy. I get that the NFL and just everybody, because it was already in our minds that throughout that whole year, and
and it works.
And
like
it works.
they bring up Ray Rice was a horrible thing for the NFL, and I don't mean to demean what happened to Ray Rice. I mean the NFL bad publicity, and then the concussion thing. They totally, no pun intended, they totally fumbled that in like the worst way. So they needed Deflategate, and I'd never heard it positioned like that before. I'm sure this documentary isn't the first to do it.
Oh yeah, and by far the most fascinating thing about this documentary was that you get to see how false information gets put into the public realm and it becomes facts, even though it is not true.
Yeah,
that was fascinating because that plays a role in everyday life, whether it be local news, national news, whatever.
Or whatever, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and that part of the document I thought was very well done, very well done, because I didn't think they were going to touch on any of that.
No, that was really fascinating.
I thought at first it would be all about Deflategate. Then I thought it would be, this is a defense of Deflategate of Tom Brady. I thought it was, and then it starts getting into, wait, all this was happening, and this is why Deflategate was orchestrated.
Yeah.
It becomes very interesting. So in this, Blake mentioned it, the NFL is positioned as evil. Roger Goodell, I mean, for years he's been booed at the draft, so much so that it's a joke this year that they had they piped in the boos. What did you think of the portrayal of or how Roger Goodell in the NFL was cast during this? Like, I thought Goodell was interesting because he's obviously like the leader of the evil empire type thing, right? But they make him almost seem intelligent.
Conniving?
In a way, very much so, very sneaky. Like he played everybody.
Yeah, and that, I think that I liked it, and there are some parts where I think I was like, I was talking to the screen. I was like, obviously he's the bad guy. Like, this is what you're going. Yeah, you're gonna be going for this guy. It just it played to that character that has been made about him.
Yeah, no. So one of the main keys you can pick up on this, if anybody watching this knows anything about Barstool Sports, one of the main interviewers is one of the main feature writers and main principal people at Barstool Sports, and Barstool Sports has actively taken almost a militant stance against the NFL and Roger Goodell. And
he's the one in the bomber jacket, right?
With the Patriots, that guy. And if you know anything about them, they hate Roger Goodell, and nothing that they would put their name on would paint him in any good light, or the NFL in any good light. So, I mean, this is a very biased perspective on the event.
NFL Players Association, so they paint them in a very interesting light. I thought that they, without saying it, and they had an interview from a spokesperson from the NFLPA, they kind of painted them as incompetent.
Yeah,
I thought
they threw him under the bus.
Yeah, it was very passive in a way that I was like, wait, what are we doing here? When he would get interviewed, it was very confusing because it wasn't painting them in a good light, and it wasn't.
That's the nicest thing it did not paint them in a good light. That's a very nice thing to say.
And I don't know what the PR guy was trying to do there, So it was very, very confusing for those interviews.
It was odd because they would talk about, all they had to say was this, like the lawyers are saying, like, why didn't they say this and that? And then they had the spokesperson from the Players Association. He was just like, well, I guess we could have said that, but at the time it was. It's like, okay, he came off as weak and ineffectual. So
yeah, yeah, he did. It was so bad.
I thought it was interesting too, and they didn't outright say that the NFL did this, but they very strongly implied it. But the whole thing about millionaires versus billionaires, I thought they made a very good case that it's not about millionaires versus billionaires, because a very small percentage of NFL players do make. I mean, we hear about the stars, right? But not everyone. Far from the vast majority of NFL players are not stars, and they're not millionaires. And I thought that was really good with going back to who controls the media kind of controls the story.
Yeah.
Did the documentary in any way change your opinions on Deflategate or Roger Goodell in the NFL?
No. No. Yeah, no. It didn't really.
No. I think this if anything, it just reaffirmed how I felt about certain people in the league, and just like how it works and how like the cogs all fit together. I do find interesting, and I thought this shined a light on that, and I did find it interesting. But no, I don't feel any different. And that's not to say I hate him more, or I ever hated him, or anything like that. I'm almost more indifferent now than ever.
So, and this has nothing. Well, not that it has nothing to do with the documentary, but it's not directly related. Do you guys, in your personal opinion, think that Tom Brady cheated?
Oh, no. I mean, no. The Patriots, they're cheaters because they videotape shit, and they do all sorts of subterfugal shit. That's why it became a story, because they're fucking cheaters, and like you people could believe that the Patriots would have had an elaborate scheme to deflate balls. That's why it became a story. But no, fucking Tom Brady. Fuck Tom Brady.
Well, he's playing for the Buccaneers now, so
Yeah, fuck Tom Brady.
Going down.
We'll see how many Super Bowls the Bucs win the next couple of years. So, final thoughts, Danny. I'll start with you. Final thoughts on 4 games in fall, and would you say immediately stream it? It's available on YouTube, Amazon, and iTunes right now. So it's rush out, take your time, or completely avoid.
I would say take your time. It's not a movie for everybody, and you have to have like it's a very niche movie.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really care about football. You really have to care about Tom Brady, I guess. But it's not. No, you know what? I would say just skip it. Skip it all around.
Skip it entirely.
Yeah.
All right, what about you, Blake? You're the commish. You're the number one stunner. What do you think?
That's right. Mr. Bovine Joni himself. You know what? Like, skip it. I don't see the point. What's the fucking? Who gives a shit about this story anymore? Who cares? Tom Brady's perfectly successful. So are the Patriots. Who cares? Who cares about any of this stuff? Skip it.
Wow. When I first saw it, I was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" Like I thought, like the whole thing about manipulation was really cool. I thought that was really neat. As I was reviewing and thinking about it, I was like, super one-sided. The interviews aren't all that great. It's kind of direct. Not well, actually, it has a very clear agenda, but it gets a little bit all over the place with the NFLPA and all that. I would say it's worth streaming, something in the background. If you're a Patriots fan, rush out and see this thing. If you just need something, if you're a football fan, I wouldn't say it's a must see, but I mean, it's worth having in the background. Every week you can catch us here. Next week we have a very special edition. We are going to go over the worst movies that we reviewed in 2020. So you could check that out here on YouTube. But otherwise, leave a comment below. We have an open review policy. We'll look at the comments, and who knows, we might review them.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Adios.